Hello guys, it's Revolution. Welcome to part 2 of What If Goku learned Forced Spirit Fission on planet Yardrat. Of course, part 1 featured Goku learning Forced Spirit Fission, the move technique that Vegeta has currently learned in the Dragon Ball Super manga in the Moro arc to basically diffuse Moro and all the ability that he's stolen from countless planets, countless lives, etc. But in this particular What If, Goku learns this ability when he was on Yardrat himself. Of course, Goku was on planet Yardrat after escaping planet Namek's explosion at the hands of Frieza, and obviously he was there for a while, learning instant transmission, which has become one of his signature moves. However, he never quite got to Forced Spirit Fission, which Vegeta achieved in the Moro arc. But what if he did? It changes the story of Dragon Ball Z dramatically, and obviously part 1 featured Goku fighting against Cell in the Cell games, and if you want to see what happened in that particular What If, make sure you check that video first, come back to this video. In part 2 we'll be covering what would happen in the Buu saga if Goku learnt Forced Spirit Fission, but the Buu saga is a lengthy saga, so this saga will cover part 2 and part 3 of this What If series. If you're new to Revolution and you enjoy these Dragon Ball What Ifs or like discussing Dragon Ball power scaling or latest news and reviews, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you love Dragon Ball and you all love this channel, I'm always getting a lot of positive reviews and receiving a lot of love for the content that I put out. Thank you for that continued support, and please do keep smashing that like button, keep lending the Daishenkin your energy. So spoilers if you haven't seen part 1 of this video, you have been warned. At the end of What If Goku perfected Forced Spirit Fission on Yardrat, Goku got killed by Cell after basically beating Cell to a pulp. Gohan did also manage to turn Super Saiyan 2 and defeat Super Perfect Cell. However, the androids, all 3 of them survived, including Android 16, and Android 17 played his part after being fissioned from Cell's body in his fight against Goku in saving not only the Earth from Cell's self-explosion, but King Kai's planet as well. So obviously we now arrive at the Buu saga. Goku has been training on King Kai's planet for the past 7 years. Gohan has been basically growing up and attending high school. Vegeta has continued his training in case Kakarot ever returns, and which he is about to do for the World Tournament. Piccolo has been helping look after Gohan, and even Gohan has been in touch with Android 16, who he has a close bond with. Obviously the androids have all stuck together. Android 17 has become a park ranger, but despite Krillin using Shenron's power via the Dragon Balls to wish away the androids' explosives that reside within their body, Android 18 opted to stay with the androids, who are all on Android 17's Park Ranger Island. The Z-Warriors and the androids have a mutually good relationship due to the collaboration in taking down Cell, but they're not super close. Poor Krillin is all I can say. Poor Krillin. Despite the fight going very differently from how it went in the original mainstream manga against Cell, the outcome was largely similar and followed a similar path, so there aren't too many changes other than the androids being alive and King Kai's planet staying intact. Goku comes back for the World Tournament. Obviously everybody wants to enter due to Goku returning. Even Android 17 wants to pit his power against Goku in the upcoming tournament, so the androids enter the World Tournament as well. Everybody arrives at the World Tournament. Obviously, the Supreme Kai also arrives at the World Tournament. To Piccolo's suspicion, he cannot figure out exactly who this person is until he eventually realizes this is the Lord of Lords, the Supreme Kai, the God of Creation. Not that they know who the God of Destruction is at this point, but that is who it is. Piccolo realizes. Piccolo concedes his fight against the Supreme Kai. Gohan faces off against Babidi Kai, where they test out Gohan's power. And of course, Videl faces off against Spopovich, who of course beats her to a pulp, enraging Gohan, who goes to school with her, and he explodes into Super Saiyan. And of course this alerts Spopovich to go and tell Babidi about the enormous power that they could eventually steal. The Supreme Kai Shin tells them all, and of course the androids, wondering why the Z-Warriors are no longer participating in this tournament, decide to follow as well. Of course, they all arrive at Babidi's lair, and they are spying on Babidi's lair while Shin continues to tell them the deal. And in that moment, they are sensed by Dabura, the Demon King, who blitzes Kibito Kai and kills Kibito Kai, blitzes Krillin, spits at Krillin and turns Krillin into stone. Then he goes to attack Piccolo, but Piccolo is saved by the android barrier. His old rival Android 17 has saved Piccolo being turned into stone. Dabura retreats and goes into Babidi's spaceship. The rest of the gang follow, and this is where Babidi unleashes Pui Pui, Yakon, and of course the final stage being Dabura. Of course, during these fights, Vegeta realizes that Goku can also use Super Saiyan 2. Gohan eventually fights against Dabura in showing that he's no longer at the levels he was in the Cell games. Dabura, who is of course observing the Z Warriors and the androids. In this time, Vegeta and Piccolo are complaining about Gohan letting go of his training and of course not being at the level he was at least in the Cell games. And this is where a row starts to ensue between the Z Warriors, Vegeta, Piccolo, and even the androids. Of course, Goku is a pure-hearted Saiyan, so he has very little to do with it, but Piccolo's history comes up, Vegeta's history comes up, and even the android's history comes up. Of course, Android 16 remains silent, and in this time Dabura observes that there's evil in some of these characters' hearts. So he tells Babidi that he could invade the mind of some of these warriors and bring them over to the side of the Majins. So we don't just get Majin Vegeta, we get Majin Piccolo and Majin 17 and 18 as well. Of course, Vegeta went straight for Goku, wanting to have their rematch that he'd desired for such a long time. And of course, they travelled to a different place on Earth in order to have that fight. Goku, of course, worried that they'd be lending energy to Majin Buu. Majin Piccolo was ordered to fight against, of course, Gohan, and the androids were ordered to kill the Supreme Kai. Of course, the Majin Vegeta vs Goku fight, Super Saiyan 2 vs Super Saiyan 2, panned out in the exact same way as it did in the mainstream timeline. Piccolo, who had received an enormous power-up via his Majin power-up, was giving Gohan a tough time and basically outmaneuvering Gohan at every occasion. You could say this fight was very reminiscent to the fight they had in episode 88 of Dragon Ball Super, where Piccolo was literally just peppering Gohan. Android 17 and 18 fought against the Supreme Kai. Of course, the Supreme Kai managed to hold off both of them well, but the double attacks from both of them and the fact that neither of them was tiring was really starting to get to the Supreme Kai, and they were starting to get the better of him. This was when Android 16 decides to step in the side of the Supreme Kai. Of course, Android 16 loves life and he knows that 17 and 18 are having their minds possessed. He talks to them about how Dr. Gero once tried to control them, and this starts to have an effect on 17 and 18. They started to rebel against Babidi's mind control. Of course, Vegeta, with his Saiyan pride, was never going to allow Babidi to have complete control over his body, and after knocking Goku unconscious from behind, went back to the battlefield where Majin Buu had already awakened due to his fight against Goku and Piccolo's fight against Gohan. The androids versus the Supreme Kai didn't contribute to this due to the fact that they don't have regular energy and the Supreme Kai has God Ki. Majin Buu appears, and at first everyone's bemused by his appearance. How can a character that looks like this be so powerful? But he demonstrates it almost instantly by turning Android 16 to chocolate. Piccolo, who is still on the offensive against Gohan, tells Gohan not to worry, that his mind hasn't really been truly controlled, that he is double bluffing Babidi and pretending to be on Babidi's side. In a rage, both Android 17 and Android 18 rush towards Majin Buu. Majin Buu knocks them both out in single blows. Piccolo then telepathically tells the Supreme Kai that he needs to get Gohan out there because Gohan is the only one with the potential to actually defeat Buu, which the Supreme Kai obliges with and uses instant teleportation to get Gohan to the Supreme World of the Kais, where he intends to have Gohan lift the Z-Sword. Babidi is enraged that the Supreme Kai has managed to escape, and in this time, Dabura, the Demon King, decides to attack Majin Buu. Of course, he gets turned to chocolate himself and is eaten. Piccolo is astounded by the fact that Majin Buu so effortlessly dismantled the Demon King, who was on a level of super perfect Cell from the Cell games. Piccolo knows that he has to stay in line at this point because he himself stands no chance. But of course, this is when Vegeta arrives on the battlefield, demanding to fight Majin Buu. The fight plays out in a very similar fashion to how it did in the original mainstream timeline. Vegeta uses the final explosion to try and obliterate and very nearly succeeds. Of course, Majin Buu has regeneration hacks that ultimately bring his body back together. During this fight, of course, Krillin is no longer turned to stone, so Piccolo telepathically asks Krillin to get Goten and Trunks to the lookout and told them to start training in the room of spirit and time. As Piccolo can sense and see at the moment, the androids are completely out of commission and Goku is nowhere to be felt. Of course, Android 16, Dabura, Kibito Kai, and Vegeta are all dead. Under Babidi's orders, Majin Buu goes on a rampage around the Earth. Piccolo is tailing with them. acting as a double agent, pretending to be Demon King Piccolo and enjoying what Majin Buu was doing. Of course, Goku wakes up and instant teleports straight to Majin Buu and knows that he has to use Super Saiyan 3 in order to remotely stand a chance. Goku transforms straight into a Super Saiyan 3 and starts fighting against Majin Buu. He recognizes that this version of Buu is not one singular character, so he starts to use Forced Spirit Fission to pull Majin Buu apart, and he pulls the evil part of Majin Buu away from the innocent side of Majin Buu, believing that he'd severely weakened Majin Buu at this point. Piccolo, recognizing that Majin Buu was now distracted with his fight against Goku, stabs Babidi through the back, straight through his heart, and kills Babidi. His act as a double agent has finished. Babidi is no more. Of course, despite fracturing the two sides of Buu, the innocent side and the evil side, the two start fighting against each other to Goku's dismay. And of course, the evil side wins just like he did in the mainstream timeline, and of course absorbs innocent Buu, becoming Super Buu. Both Goku and Piccolo are astounded at the level of power Buu now has as Super Buu, and Goku quickly grabs Piccolo and instant transmissions to the lookout. Goku agonizes over the fact he didn't finish them before the evil Buu absorbed the innocent Buu, and states that he could fight them again and find a way to fracture them in half again, but ultimately he doesn't have enough time in Super Saiyan 3 left and won't have enough time left on Earth due to the fact he has to return to Otherworld. So he tells Piccolo about the fusion dance and tells him to help him teach Goten and Trunks the fusion dance, in which of course they do. And that's the end of part 1 of this part 2 of What If Goku Perfected Forced Spirit Fission on Yardrat. Part 2 will feature Gotenks taking on Super Buu, and obviously Ultimate Gohan arriving from the Supreme World of the Kais, and of course Goku will return again, as well as Vegeta. Piccolo's still in the fray, as well as the two androids when they eventually become conscious, but there's definitely a lot to happen in the next part of What If Goku Perfected Forced Spirit Fission. Make sure you're subscribed, let me know what your thoughts are about this What If, and of course any potential ideas that you have yourself. Keep smashing the like button, keep letting the die shanking your energy. Until next time, Ad Astra.